Welcome back to the Kornelia Stephanie Show. It's an honor and a pleasure to be with you today. We're going to talk again, like we do the second Friday of every month. How do you change the conversation from money to vision, with my co-host, Joan Sharp, and our very special guest today, Dr. Moira Somers. And so here, I would like to talk a little bit first before we get started on the show, what the talk is going to be about. How do we change the conversation from money to vision? You're going to hear from our guest today, who's going to be talking about these conversations concerning this holiday season and the importance of talking vision than money. And this is one of the things that Joan has been helping us with over the last 6 months. We're going to be talking about, why does financial advice not stick? So first, let me introduce you to our very special co-host, Joan Sharp of River Family Advisors. Not just an advisor, she's a thought leader in the area of changing your money mindset. Joan encourages us to change the difficult conversations that we have that are all about money to a pleasant conversation about a shared vision, and you will better support your values, life experiences, legacy, and wealth. Welcome, Joan Sharp.
Hey, Kornelia. Great to be here on this October day. It is beautiful where I am on the East Coast. It is fall, has come in full force. I know there's some people in the southern part of the U.S. getting ready for hurricanes again. Last show we had fires, and this show we have some hurricanes. But and then Dr. Moria Somers, I am so honored to have you here and to be part of this conversation. And I want to let you know, so Dr. Somers is a psychologist, a professor, author, and executive coach based in Winnipeg, Manitoba. She brings an uncommon combination of expertise in neuroscience, financial psychology, mental health, and behavior change to bear on a wide range of personal and professional challenges. Along with seeing clients, Dr. Somers is a senior faculty member at the Financial Transitionist Institute. So she teaches me. She has delivered keynote addresses to organizations such as the National Football Players Associations. Dr. Somers is frequently called upon by media to discuss the quirks of humans and their money. Her book, Advice That Sticks: How to Give Financial Advice That People Will Follow, has become an international bestseller. It tackles head-on the problem of unimplementation financial advice. And we're going to hear from her point of view about this, along where, as we know, the holidays are always very stressful and a lot of money excuses show up. And so this year, we really need to talk vision and not money. Not that that won't be easy. So, Dr. Somers, welcome. And I'm so glad you were able to join us.
Thanks for the invitation, Joan. It's always a delight to spend time with you.
Oh, thanks. Well, and I'm going to open with a quote that you have to start us off. And you have said, too much excellent financial advice lands on deaf ears or falls by the wayside after just a few weeks of half-hearted implementation. And I want to prevent that problem. Please explain to us what you mean by that.
You know, it's often hard to act on what we know is best for our life, isn't it? It doesn't matter what domain it is, whether you're talking your health or parenting, or finances. And the more that emotion is involved in a topic, and the more that things like self-control and good communication are involved in the advice that we're given, or what it is we're expected to implement, the more likely it is that it won't ever get implemented. And as a result, I work with a lot of women in business, for example, and I just see them struggle to do what their financial advisors, their business coaches ask them to do. And it's because there's so much emotion involved with this topic. And so many unspoken assumptions, so many lessons that were learned, sometimes even before we were verbal. And that stuff is just kind of woven into our hearts and our souls and our minds. And until we can become conscious about it, it can be really hard to have it lead us in the direction that we want to be going in our lives and in our family lives.
You put the big word out there, communication. and I say that is the big word because I personally, we're talking about communicating your vision and starting with your vision versus money. And that's what I say. But when you say, what are they not communicating, do you suppose? And do they know it's there? Are they not communicating? And when I say vision, I mean, you have a vision for how this call was going to go. People have a vision for what their weekend is going to look like. They have visions for what a meeting is going to look like. And that's where we set our expectations. So when you say, communication isn't right, can you expand a little bit on what you see and find with that?
Sure. If I just stick to the area of people working with financial advisors to begin with, financial advisors make a lot of errors, and they're unintended, and they're often well-intentioned, but for example, they use way too much jargon. They think that clients need to know all the ins and outs behind the rationale for why they're. Uh-oh.
We had a little blip. So while she's getting our internet is recycling, I'm going to say to her point, here I am a certified financial. We lost you for a second. And you were saying how financial advisors use jargon a lot.
They do. They do. Too much jargon.
And people, and that's and people get lost a little bit on that. Or intimidated.
Intimidated and turned off, frankly. Yeah. The other thing is that advisors often come at things from way too technical a standpoint. And although technical expertise is absolutely critical, we want people who are well-trained and who know what they're talking about. We also want people to find out about us, about what matters to us, about why this isn't just one size fits all, a car wash, automatic car wash style of financial advising. We want people to get to know us and our families and what matters. Not just for today, but for those days in life when the feathers hit the fan, when something bad happens or when we're facing setbacks. We want people who know us. And so that goes way deeper than just what kind of product should we be invested in or how much money should we be earning.
Well, I was going to say one thing I want to share because I will tell you, as you are probably all aware, I'm a certified financial planner. And I have my own advisor because it's just because I'm a planner doesn't mean I don't need someone to help and work with me. And there was a particular situation with something they were doing. And I was trained with different language than what I was seeing them tell me so I could figure it out. And I was nervous and embarrassed to ask. What does this mean? And please explain, because of course, with my ego, I had to say, I learned this a little differently, but if I'm that embarrassed or uncomfortable when I understand to a great extent what we're doing, but I don't understand particular, like knowing what the start and end, the way it's being communicated and the value is, I can't imagine how other people feel when I'm educated to ask that question. And
yeah, it is a particular problem with women who go to financial advisors. And it obviously has nothing to do with intelligence or financial savvy. It just has to do with being made to feel comfortable and being okay to be in a place where you say, can you please rephrase that? We are socialized to just be agreeable and to nod and to smile and to think it must be something about us if we're not understanding, rather than something in the communication dyad that needs to be altered. And so if there's a piece of advice that I can give to the women on the call who are working with financial advisors or looking for business coaches, that sort of thing, is make sure that you have the kind of relationship where you can admit at times that you don't have a hot clue, either what to do or what they just said, and work to improve that communication.
And I want to throw in one more piece, if you don't, so I'm going to ask, like, when you said it's not just about number returns and this and that, do you feel people are comfortable actually sharing what their value and vision is with someone right away, or what their plan in life is? Do you think some people don't because they're afraid that someone will say, oh, that's ridiculous or impossible, we can't make that return happen? Or, I mean, when you said that, they don't, it's so expand a little bit on what you were saying when they, it's not just about the return, or,
there are parallel developments within medicine where I teach at a medical school. Mm-hmm. And so trying to get physicians and patients together to recognize that health is something that obviously depends on what the patient does, but the quality of healthcare advice is very directly dependent on what the physician does or doesn't do, and how communication happens at that moment. So to recognize that both parties have a role to play in making sure that the patient feels comfortable in disclosing information, and so with an advisor, a financial advisor, the same thing happens. To be asked about purpose and meaning is to be invited into an intimate conversation. And you want that to happen as a result of feeling safer in the meeting. You don't just, even when you go to a physician and you have to have a physical, you don't greet the physician naked. There's a little bit of, there's a little bit of back and forth, and then the physician goes out of the room and you get a robe and you decide how you're going to make yourself known. And similarly, to tell an advisor about money mistakes that you've made, or how it is that there was financial abuse in your family, or that there's a background context in which this financial advice is being given, that perhaps the marriage is in trouble, perhaps somebody's aware that dementia runs through the family line like a train. All of these things impact on how safe a person feels, and in turn requires that a person feels safe in order to deepen the conversation. And the advisor has to be skilled and sensitive about knowing how to handle these things. If you've got somebody who freaks out at the first sign of tears, for example, or the first sign of anger or confusion, you don't have somebody who knows how to work in that space where both technical expertise and personal expertise are equally valued and important.
Yeah. Tears are big. I have a client who will cry when they're frustrated. And then sometimes when an emotion's brought up, and I have to sit and work with and figure out which one it is so we can move forward. And I think I think one of the best things I believe I've heard from you, I know, is never to hand someone a Kleenex when they're crying, is to let them cry and grab a Kleenex on their own so they can process what's going on with that. But Cornelia, I feel like you want to say something or throw something in because Dr. Somers just said a lot there.
Well, I like what you said also about the Kleenex. Right away I want to say, yeah, don't give the Kleenex and don't touch the person. Don't stop them from crying, because once the tears happen, you don't want to interrupt that process. So that's what I wanted to say. But thank you for sharing everything that you shared about, the conversation and the communication for the client to feel safe, for the client to feel safe with their financial advisor. And I think that now more than ever, ladies, we really need to be unapologetic in our communications. We really do. We need to really feel like we want to know what's going to help us get to where we want to go, and to be able to ask the people that we hire to work with us to make our lives better. Dr. Somers, you indicate why people seek advisors are often due more to emotions. Among the things that clients want are to reduce decision-making complexity, increase their confidence, to receive encouragement that they're on the right track, and generally walk away feeling more settled than they did, when they walked into your office to begin with, right? So could you speak on that?
I think, I'm a neuropsychologist by training, and so how it is that the mind works is a fundamental interest to me. What we know is that when we are in a state of not knowing, it's a little bit unsettling, and we seek to get answers to questions or solutions to problems. And when that happens, it results in a kind of settling. We settle down. We settle down cognitively, and we settle down emotionally, and we often settle down relationally, particularly if we're doing something with a business partner or a life partner. And so all advice in the end is emotional advice, because it allows that settling to occur at profound levels. When people come in and speak to experts, it doesn't matter what if you're going to a cobbler or you're going to a dry cleaner to get a stain out, what you're looking for is somebody to help do some of those things that you mentioned, Cornelia. You want them to unburden you. You want them to take some of the complexity. You want them to save you time. You want them to reduce your worry. You want them to eliminate the possibility of regret. You want them to get you into action, to move you forward when you've been stuck or not known which way to go. All of those things, as I said, they settle you, and they get you, when it's the right kind of advice, you'll know it because it kind of gives you a sense of peace. That's one of the things that I talk about with my own therapy clients and executive coaching clients. It's a really good idea to not do anything that you can't do from a place of peace. Now, that doesn't mean that it will always be easy. I don't mean, ease and peace are not the same thing, are they?
No.
But if you know in your heart that something that you're being asked to do is violating a standard that you hold dear, you need to pause and say, I need a little bit of time here to think about why that's not sitting well with me. Can we have a talk about that? And I have somebody right now who's in the middle of a very big divorce settlement, and what came back, what she's being pressured to sign, is not something that is, it's making her physically ill. And it doesn't mean that what she's being asked to sign isn't really the best thing that can come up. But if she signs it in that place of not knowing and anxiety, it will haunt her for the rest of her days. And so it's best to kind of figure out what is it that's giving you the choking sensation instead of the settling sensation, and figure out, is this an information problem? Is this Is this an emotional integration problem? What is it that needs to happen? Or do I need to ask for something different?
I think, yeah, no, but it's a really good segue. And I think, and I mean, I think a lot of people sometimes don't know what that throat, that frog in the throat or our stomach is. And because I think maybe, and I don't know, have we suppressed it for so long that we're afraid if we share it, someone won't like us, kind of thing. Or, haven't acknowledged it maybe because it's just so in us that we don't know it's there, like habits and things on how we make decisions are there. And I'm going to say this is a perfect segue to leading us to the holidays, because here we all are, right? And you're in Canada, and it is Thanksgiving there on Monday. Happy Thanksgiving. We all have Halloween coming up around the corner, and then the US Thanksgiving and Christmas. And these are always stressful times. And these are things ingrained in us and things that we have done, habits and ingrained habits that we don't even know probably why we do them anymore. And part of what we do, which could be part of the stress this year, right? Of what do we do and how do we do? I'm kind of like that throat, like what's bugging me that's there and can create tension. And I don't know about you, but I find that people tend to use money as the excuse for not dealing with that question. I'm really going on. Well, we can't afford it because I don't have a job. We can't afford it because if I don't work through, my company's expecting me to, I could lose my job because someone else is there to replace it. I mean, there could be a lot of things. So Dr. Somers, please talk about how do we deal with maybe the rut or the extreme habits, and we can like all of them, we can like some of them, that because this season is usually a lot of high pressure.
It is, and this is definitely going to be one for the record books, isn't it? Like, where I'm living in a jurisdiction where people are being strongly advised to not have family dinners.
Oh.
You can be with the people in your own household, but that's it. And I'm looking at the 20-pound turkey that I bought in the summer when I was so optimistic that this would be in the rearview mirror, thinking, oh man, maybe I'm just gonna go buy a little broiler chicken instead. So I talked about that not doing anything that you can't do out of a place of peace. There's an author named Martha Beck. Many of you might know her. She writes in the Oprah magazine, and she makes this lovely distinction between the essential self, what truly matters to us. Who are we when nobody's looking? What makes us not interchangeable with any other nice lady on the planet? The things that are truly Kornelia, truly Joan, truly Moira. So that's the essential self. And then there's the social self. And that's the self that goes along to get along. That's the self that's polite and civilized and accommodating. And it's the self that feels will never develop when you're raising children and they're nasty toddlers, for example. You want a little bit more of the social self.
You mean the 2-year-old?
So what happens often in people's lives is that the social self comes to be monstrously predominant.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of lose touch with who you are and what matters to you. And you may even be in a culture that rewards you for becoming increasingly anonymous and quiet and non-intrusive. And what we know is that the more that happens to you and the more that you actually participate in that, the less the universe gets to benefit from your existence on this earth, for example. But also the more likely you are to fall sick, to become mentally unwell and physically unwell. And so part of what we need to do as we go into the holidays is to, first of all, get in touch with what matters to us. Can we articulate something that we either would like to see the end of, or something that we'd like to invite more and more of, or something that we'd like to see starting. And ask that of everybody in the family. You know, gatherings tend to be about as happy as the least happy person in the room. You ever notice that phenomenon?
I have never heard that one.
Well, it sure is the case when you're on a family holiday in a car together.
That's true.
But to, you know, one thing is to see about just laying it out there that this may not be the thing that we can do. We may not be able to do the things that we've always done. But what is it that people would truly like to see now? If there's only one thing, you know, if people only get their first choice, what would that be? And to begin to open up that discussion. I don't know, Joan, that it's possible to not have money be part of the discussion, because it is so interwoven into, can you even afford the, you know, the turkey?
Right.
That's a real issue in some families right now.
Yep.
And some, when you are bringing families together on that beautiful day when we can start having extended gatherings again, whatever you knew about people's financial lives before may have shifted entirely. You know, the reality of their financial lives may have shifted entirely, or how they choose to live their lives may have shifted entirely. So to be willing to meet people again for the first time, to say, how are you?
I love that. I love that, ladies. I love what you just shared, to be willing to meet like we did for the first time, because then with all of that, we're leaving the past behind. Why don't we take this moment right now to go on a break? And when we come back, we will continue this amazing conversation on how to change the conversation from money to vision. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. I'm with my beautiful co-host, Joan Sharp, and our guest, Moira Somers, and we're talking about how to change the conversation this holiday. And we might be faced with doing things completely different than we've done in the past. We were talking during the break, and you wanted to bring some things back, Joan. What did you want to address right now?
Well, Dr. Somers ended beautifully with saying, meet people as if you've met them for the first time. And talking about money is part of this whole holiday conversation. And I don't disagree with that. But how do we start with meeting people first for who they are and what's important, and allowing money to sit on the side, and then bring it in as the conversation to then struggle back and forth on what works with where you all met for the first time?
I think that if you want to have a hope and heck of having good conversations about stuff, you have to get into a place of peace yourself. And that involves, you know, understanding what your own body's telling you. You know, are you tense and uptight? Are you sad and constricted? Are you actually grieving? Are you scared? Know what's going on for you and be able to meet yourself with compassion about where you are right now. If you can name it, if you can identify it, then there's a very real possibility, if you're not trying to block it or to force it to be something else, that it will move through you. And in moving through you, you get to the other side of it, and you're a little less, whatever it was that you were, a little less rattled, a little less uptight. So trying to do your darndest to bring a good energy into the conversation with people. If you're the tensest person in the room, you can't be that guide that you want to be. You can't be that leader that you want to be in terms of setting the stage for new visions to emerge. So get yourself in a good space. And, you know, sometimes, you know, you go to family gatherings and you think, yeah, the only way we can do that is to put Valium in everybody's turkey or stuffing. Like, I don't know how to bring this down. But that can be one of the things that you talk about, is that how do we have this be a less tense time than we've had? And for some families, it is really deliberate. Like, let's not discuss politics, or let's have a dry family gathering because the substance use tends to make things a little more volatile. Or let's get the kids out of the house for a rousing game of tag because the noise tends to drive grandpa crazy and then things don't go well. So, it involves telling the truth about what it's been like before and seeing whether there are loving and creative and even fun ways to do it differently this time around.
So some people, it's interesting, are not going to be able to have grandma and grandpa because they could be in a facility or in a hospital, and you're not able to see them. Mm-hmm. You're not able to go in and see them, and they're not able to come out to you. And in my community, I know there's a lot of people that go from their house, they go to their parents' house, they go to their in-laws' house, they go to their aunt's house, they go to their uncle's house, right? All within a day. And probably some people eat a lot of turkey at every house, and some eat a little, and so that probably, unless you're in a warmer climate, it's not going to be able to look like that. And I say because you could do something outside, and that's why I say a warmer climate. Some of the people are going to be able to probably do this in their backyards, and that's if they have backyards, because I don't have a backyard, right? So how do we meet the expectations of, let's say, parents? We have our own family, we're worn down. A lot of people are worn down because they're teaching virtually their kids or trying to balance that along with work. And then I don't know about you, but my mom's voice is always in my head. And so I find that can drive a lot of other people, parents, on guilt on them not being there to visit them and stuff that can make it different. So and that's kind of where resources, because there may be people who can rent a facility that is socially different and others cannot. Mm-hmm. And as we mentioned, some people won't be able to even afford a turkey.
Yeah. So, wow, Joan, I don't even know where to start there. The Dalai Lama. No, let's start there.
That's always a good place.
Let's start with you. He talks about how expectations are really what underlie pain. That and unspoken expectations, this is the Somers corollary to the Dalai Lama, unspoken expectations are what underlie craziness within families. And so the more you can surface them, what is it that we've always known, and what has that led us to expect? If somebody can be the family kind of historian and say, this is the way it's always been, and let's note that it doesn't always have to be this way. If we could give each other the gift of not having to do things the way we've always done, and parents, those of you who are, sort of the moving into that grandparent generation or the older generation, if you could give your daughters and daughters-in-law and sons-in-law the gift of a blank slate to do this the way that it's going to work for you, and to say that, traditions are lovely, but sanity is lovelier. And getting through the holiday without alienation or infection is lovelier still. And so to just be really, really open about both freeing people from expectations and also saying this this one's really important to me. If we could keep this, I would be so thrilled. But if we can't, I'll understand. You know, both sides of that, and to invite other people to say the same thing.
Yeah, I love what you're sharing. Like what you were saying earlier, that all advice is, all advice is emotionally based, and this, what you're speaking of right now, is the feeling that you are conveying is safe, is connective, and it is open and inclusive. This is a wonderful way for us to come together and do this holiday season in the same way of the questions that you're sharing and how to do things differently and look at changing things from the way we used to do it to what we can do today in a way that brings peace to the equation, right?
Mm-hmm. You know, for so many families, this is not only will it be different, but it will be there will be grief present. You know, there will be people who have passed. And for some families, you know, it's going to be the same, and that's not necessarily going to be a good thing because they're, again, you know, maybe it's time that you play dysfunctional family bingo. And like every time Uncle Fred says something racist, oh, you get a little stamp on your card. every time your sister gets that pinched look on her face, yeah, you predicted that one too. You get another stamp on your card. Finding ways to bring levity into things that you can't change, or that you find yourself in a position of not being able to say no to. That's another way. Booking an appointment with your therapist, making sure that you get some time away to, you know, you have to keep it real. And every family's got its own foibles, and every family's got its own strengths. And every family has, every individual in any season, because of the transitions that we're going through, any season of life, there will be times when we need to ask for a little more grace, or we need to cut ourselves a little more slack and really make a point of self-care.
Excellent. I think with this, we should go on our last break. And when we come back, why don't we share with our audience on how they can learn more about you and look at your social media, or how people can get in contact with you. And we have about 10 minutes left on this podcast. It's amazing how fast the hour goes by. But again, thank you so much for the wonderful conversation. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the show today. Happy Thanksgiving again to our Canadian friends. We have many people that are joining us from Canada. Happy Thanksgiving, Canada. And so, Joan, take it away. We have less than 10 minutes left.
Well, Dr. Somers, you had mentioned that you have to get yourself right and be the energy in the room, right? On where you are, on your vision, expectations, and the resources you have to support the holidays. I find there is either a friend, a family member that is sucking the energy, and you want to help give. I will say, I know I want to help give them the light to see the possibilities and the vision and the energy around, you know, enjoying the holidays and doing what they would like. How do you question and help these people? And I will say, I usually find no matter how much money they have, there is a money excuse or block that is creating the negative energy.
You know, it's really hard to, you can't steer a parked car, Joan. So there are some people who just don't want their energy to be changed. And sometimes we just have to recognize that our control begins and ends with our own skin, and that's hard enough to deal with our own energy. So if somebody is triggering you with their negativity, you have some choices. You have the choice to again work with yourself to recognize that this is not fun for you, but you are making a loving decision to stay present for them. You can ask for something different from them. You can change the topic. It's often really helpful to say, "Does anybody want to play a game of cards? Anybody want to go for a walk?" And just change the energy by changing the activity. But ultimately, we also do need to realize that sometimes people need to feel what they feel. If you don't want to bear witness to that, then you have to take responsibility for the fact that you're not in a place to bear witness to that, and just figure out what it means to be loving and supportive when you can't actually be fully present in the way that they might want you to be.
So by changing what you're doing and allowing the negative energy, maybe just, to be in the corner, to move the energy for the rest of the people around and allow that person to be who they are and honor it. Is that,
and, sometimes people will happily be diverted. So, anybody want to help me with the dishes? Anybody want to take the kids out, play croquet? Anybody, whatever it is that you do in your family. Anybody want to watch a movie? Sometimes that diversion where nobody actually has to talk allows the energy to shift, especially. So, have some good funny movies on tap and some fun games. If you can interject some positivity into the room, it changes everything. Possibilities that you never saw before open up when people are in touch with more positive emotions. And that can be everything from silliness to the profoundest experience of gratitude or meaning, and everything in between.
Thank you. Wow. And I it's interesting. One thing you had mentioned, also previously, let the uncle, he's going to say what he is, put a stamp like on that game kind of thing. I personally am finding in all this, and I've always found, communication's the key to everything, and never to be afraid to communicate what you're thinking and feeling. But through all that we've been going through this year, there are more than one right. And sometimes the angst comes from feeling you're right. And I think sometimes the holiday angst comes from feeling you're right. And this gives us an opportunity, because who's right now? Right? Nobody knows who's right now, because we don't know anything. We're all living day to day at this point. And I guess one thing I personally have found beautiful around this time is I'm able to step back and see the different points of view, and have, from that point of view, they're right. I see why they're coming at it, but it allows me to grow, to bring things together with that. So I'm thinking with the holidays, which then, as we talked about with money in the conversation, if we just stop and listen to where they're coming from and why that right is where it is different than yours. I don't know. Does that?
Yeah, that it's such a different question to say, what if they actually had something of value to teach me in this? What if there's truth in this thing that on the face of things I might actually find abhorrent? Or what if I could sit with it long enough to know why this thing is so important to them in this way? Right. And so without having to capitulate or throw your morality or your political, the thing that is closest to your heart, you can still nevertheless show up with a heart for making better family ties.
Yeah.
Even that capacity that you're describing, Joan, about how it's shifted in you over time, the different ways of thinking about rightness, I think that's part of the getting of wisdom. And it's certainly part of the getting of graciousness. And for people to whom that matters, you can cultivate it, and you can bring that gracious, peaceful energy into a room and into your family life, even if you can't be in the room together.
Thank you. I'm hoping, based on what a lot of us have been going on right now, that people are questioning their beliefs and what they thought. And here we are walking into one of those seasons where we've all had these set beliefs that have to be shaken up and shifted in the ways of being, that this gives us the opportunity for the right. And along with the resources and thinking about that. And I will say this is, if you have an advisor, you want to start working and changing these conversations. I have the groups that I do, Changing Your Conversation, that meet quarterly. And if you go to River, RIVER, Family, FAMILY, Advisors, ADVISORS.com, under Changing Your Conversation, you can sign up and send me an email for being part of a group to support you with helping, starting with the communication and putting things so you can work on changing that conversation with your family and advisors on moving forward on changing that conversation.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to throw out there again, if someone has started changing their conversation from money to vision, shoot us an email so we can share it on how it's working and doing it. And Dr. Somers, I have to appreciate, especially as you're walking into your Canadian Thanksgiving, that you took the time to join us and have this conversation about being with families in the holiday season and having these conversations and knowing that the money tension is there with us, with all your wonderful knowledge.
Well, I wish everybody a great start to the holiday season, wherever it is that whether you're Jewish and have been dealing with changing traditions or challenging traditions for a while, or Christian or Muslim or anything that we haven't even thought of here. Fall and moving into winter involves gatherings and spiritual times for most people around the globe. And so I wish all of you wisdom and peace as you negotiate these changing times.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing this beautiful conversation with our audience. The main message that I'm walking away with is making better family ties and feeling more at peace and bringing that peace into the equation, the emotional peace, feeling emotionally secure. Thank you, ladies, for a fantastic show. Happy Thanksgiving to you all in Canada. Thank you, Dr. Somers. Joan Sharp, see you again next month. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you again. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kornelia.